か聞こえるだろう遥かな轟き闇の中心揺さぶる目覚め始まる大地割りそそり立つ姿正義の証か
A merry robot podcast about protecting the peace of the world and your neighborhood. It's Super Audio Robo Podcast Z. I'm Ark, that's Neff, and this is the show where we recommend you the finest mecha content for your cultural and artistic development. It's the penultimate episode, everyone. Like, what are you groaning for, Neff? This is clearly going to be like a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, do you hear the description? Well, I guess when Tomino was pitching it, it was technically true at the time.
It's technically true. It is it does bring peace to the universe. Technically. Oh my god.
We're talking about Space Runaway Ideon. You know, the thing we had been teasing for a little while. That we had to get to this moment.
Boy, yeah, I watched this show and even like rewatching it, it still got me going at the end.
Yeah. At least you've seen like the TV anime in question. You've seen all this stuff like beforehand.
Yeah.
This was like my first time getting like the story, well, as much in full as I could within like the limited amount of time we had in between recordings.
Yeah.
You know, you can thank Sunrise's habit of compilation movies during the 80s for making this possible.
Well, we can get into that a little later. Why don't we start with a synopsis for this fucking thing?
All right, yeah, sure. Let's do it. In the year 2300, far away in the Andromeda Galaxy, a group of archaeologists uncovered 3 large mechanized tanks on the planet Solo. These machines are the parts of a tremendous robot known as Ideon, and within it holds the power source known as Ide, which has the capacity for infinite energy. It's an incredible find that a race of humanoids known as the Buff Clan seek to obtain Ideon by any means necessary. In order to keep it out of their hands, the humans of Solo must fight off wave after wave of attacks from their enemies while fleeing across the galaxy. But as the battle goes on, not only does the collateral damage of their conflict take its toll, but everyone slowly begins to suspect there's more to the Ideon than is first assumed.
Yeah, that's pretty much a lot of the show is them just running away and fighting and terrible things happening.
Yeah, that title of the show is actually very accurate to kind of like the events that take place. The Space Runaway part is there quite literally.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about cosmic horror?
I love it, even though I know it makes me feel weird, uncomfortable things inside.
Oh, ain't that a mood? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and it really belies that feeling, which lets you know that it is actually cosmic horror done right, because it's not like, you know, it's not revealing its full hand on that matter until you've gotten deep enough in that it's hard to pull out.
Yeah, it really is one of those things that slowly creeps up on you until like near the end when you're like, oh no, I can kind of see where this is going.
You can see where it's going in what I thought was going to be just yet another typical Sunrise-produced super robot anime. Because we might as well describe how this even came to be with our prehistory. Like, this was a 1980s mecha anime. We said the name of the studio, and yes, as you might imagine, this was directed by Yoshiyuki Tomino. This was the project he would direct after the original Mobile Suit Gundam, only a short few months after it had finished its original TV airing.
I can't believe he went from Gundam to this. I can't believe they let him make this.
I mean, the thing you should be saying is that I can't believe that Sunrise got fooled by Tomino again.
They got fooled by him again.
Because, again, with this being shortly after Gundam's first TV airing, it serves as a good reminder to make for like the context surrounding when Ideon would be produced. This is after Gundam had originally finished and was basically as close to being written off as a failure as you could get. You know, with like all the production issues that it had and the poor viewer ratings, just because it was like completely mishandled by executives and sponsors who were like not understanding the kind of show Tomino was wanting to like pioneer with this thing. So you can imagine the kind of negative feelings brewing within while still trying to like put into motion the plans that would eventually salvage Gundam's reputation and turn it into the juggernaut that, you know, would change the face of anime forever. But until then, Tomino was tasked with making yet another robot anime that would follow the same formula as Sunrise's earlier productions, you know, just a super robot show where the majority of their funding would come from toy sponsors that would like take the design that they thought would be marketable to kids as a toy that they could sell during the year, you know, it's something they went with all the way back to Brave Raideen, and they were like, we're not going to stop doing this. If it works, it works.
Was there just nobody, like, looking over Tomino's shoulder and looking at all the shit he's doing? Did they just not know what he was planning or what he was doing with the show?
I mean, I think we need to just look at the entire list of, like, names that have been approved in the Gundam series to get the answer to that question.
You know what? Fair enough. You're right. When you're right, you're right.
Yeah. like no higher ups fucking give a shit about like the details of what they're putting out, not unless it's something that is actually bringing them negative PR, which they're not really able to catch it until it's too late.
Yeah, you're right.
That said, when it came to Ideon specifically, and even like the robot design that would be at the center of it, like it was kind of like the original spark for like Tomino to use it as his latest Trojan horse for the kind of story he wanted to tell, especially because following so closely after Gundam, you would think that like it would be with a number of other Sunrise robot productions throughout the 80s that Kunio Okawara would have worked on the designs. But actually, the design that would become the Ideon itself did not originate from him or anyone at Sunrise. It was the design of Yuichi Higuchi from Studio Submarine. You know, just like a completely different anime studio where like the design was shown to Tomino and I guess just lit a spark in him when he saw it that it would be like, you know, simultaneously be the perfect design that he could use to like satisfy the higher ups at Sunrise with getting toy companies on board to sponsor the project and basically just make sure that this time everyone would be happy. After all, he finally got his pet project out of the way with Gundam. That means he's ready to go back to doing stuff that makes the company happy.
Yeah.
At least in theory.
Well, that was the plan.
Yeah, because no one was prepared for a super robot anime where Tomino would bait the sponsors a second time, along with the studio, producing another dark and destructive anime that would somehow top even Zambot 3. The show that basically sparked the whole, like, Kill 'em all Tomino nickname that he has been, like, christened with for decades.
This is just like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me thrice. What am I even doing with my life? How did I fall for it again?
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. This is kind of an important podcaster's note. Considering that these are like older shows, and especially these being older shows that do not have the name, you know, Gundam directly assigned to it, it's difficult to like find a lot of fully detailed information like you would on like the really like big mass appeal kind of like pop culture phenomenons of their era. Most of what I could really find like in official sources are more to do with like the people that were credited with their specific roles on the show. You know, Tomino is director, Yuichi Higuchi for the design of the Ideon, even though technically he himself, that this was kind of shitty when I discovered it, he was not actually credited in person as the designer. It was his studio that got the credit.
Oh, darn.
I think it got like corrected like after the fact, but like for the TV show, it was basically just attributed entirely to Submarine. And also, even another thing is, this always shocks me every time I look over the credits and see this under like the anime's like composer, because I did not expect him to be there. Koichi Sugiyama.
Yeah. If you don't know who that is the composer of all the Dragon Quest games until he passed away, and also a terrible human being. I just wanted to mention that part too. Rest in peace. But yes.
Yeah. That was the main reason why it like kind of threw me for a loop. And it's like, really? Wow. I did not expect this asshole to like have like a brief connection with one of the biggest like giant robot anime studios of all time. But
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, the music is great.
At least you got to make it back then under the assumption that no filthy gaijin were going to watch it, so we didn't need to replace it with shitty MIDI files.
Yeah. Oh my god, just replacing everything with MIDI files. It would make it an experience, but yeah.
Yeah, but the main point I'm trying to get at is that because of the lack of detailed information compared to like the more obvious like successful like anime in history, we're choosing to abide, like what we have been describing is primarily based on how this scenario was depicted in the somewhat satirical biographical manga called Gundam Sosei, otherwise translated as The Men Who Created Gundam. You know, like this was the story that was like penned by the guy that made the fucking like mahjong manga, The Legend of Koizumi. You know, where the Prime Minister of Japan is in a mahjong battle with fucking Hitler on the moon, who goes Super Aryan. Yeah, I can tell you're shocked. Like, even though like that manga is specifically about the creation of Gundam, it takes the time to like highlight, you know, that during that time of salvaging Gundam's reputation, Tomino did work on Ideon, and that opening line I said at the beginning, it is a modification of what he says at the end of his pitch, where he is just laying out like insanely like stupid and hilarious, like kid-friendly descriptions for what the Ideon robot is, its different parts, and the characters that pilot it. Hence why he describes it as a merry robot action anime about protecting the peace of the world and your neighborhood. There's clearly like a shred of truth to like what goes throughout that obviously insane, over-exaggerated manga, but I think it goes without saying that it's like if there's even a shred of truth, I'm going to stick with it as the truth because it is at least entertaining as hell. Just have that be your takeaway for how something like Space Runaway Ideon was able to actually come about.
I was going to say it's weird how little information there is, considering how influential Space Runaway Ideon actually is to the anime industry. Like, this is low-key one of the most influential mecha anime out there.
Shocking, to say the least. Yeah, considering just how to know that it even exists beforehand, I feel already requires you to be willing to, like, be deep into giant robots as a whole. And start searching things out besides the mainstream hits.
Yeah, like this is like one of those pieces of media where once you watch it, suddenly everything you've watched before starts to click, and it's like, oh, this is where that got its influence from. Not like I meant naming names or anything, but you know.
I mean, I could probably say one, and that is, I could see how this possibly was something that I'm going to say Ken Ishikawa probably had to have, like, seen this anime or the movies to have, like, give him an inkling of what he would eventually do with Getter Robo when he got back to writing that manga.
I'd believe it. I'd believe, like, this influenced even Getter Robo.
Like, it could have been a case of just inspiring him to take that story in the direction that he did, or maybe just give him, like, the little extra push to fully realize, you know, this is what I have been writing all along. And this thing is showing me that there's room for this kind of like darkly horrific idea that I want to explore.
Yeah.
It is surprising both in like the themes and even just like the way that the robot itself is framed. It earns its place as like an important step, like in just the like the ever-long pantheon of giant robots, and how it's like everyone is bringing a new idea to the table that no one had ever seen before, that future creators then look at and proceed to build on it. And then, you know, creators after them building on that even further and further.
So, like, later on, we're going to be talking about the movie, It Be Invoked. And I would say especially that movie has a lot in common with other movies like it. Should I just mention what they are, or should we just get to that like later?
I think it'll be clear once we get to the actual discussion about it. Yeah. To wrap up the prehistory, the obvious deception aside, Ideon obviously would air on Japanese TV for 39 episodes. Surprisingly, like, its original run was cut short, but not by as much as I initially thought it would be. I guess it had been basically planned for 43 episodes, so it had to make an abrupt ending with like 4 episodes worth of content, like either just truncated or removed. I mean, at least I guess that's technically not as bad as what Ryosuke Takahashi had to do when Leisner got canceled.
Yeah.
But you could still feel the abruptness, like, at least from, oh, again, because I've not watched the TV anime, just going off of synopses, I could look at it and be like, oh yeah, that sounds jarring. But, like, the 39 episodes that did air went from May 8th, 1980 to January 30th, 1981. As you might imagine, the cancellation obviously came from, you know, like, a lack of viewership ratings, especially viewership ratings that plummeted further when the network decided to like push it even further into the evening past like what would be considered like the primetime like equivalent slot. I think in Japan they have a more like specific term that they use there, which I think is golden time. Assuming I'm not confusing that with something else in terms of like TV airing time frames of the era. I don't know. Regardless, let it be known that like as far as episodes on this podcast, we have talked about a total of like 4 anime from the same studio that have all had this shit happen to them.
This keeps happening. How does this keep happening?
Original Mobile Suit Gundam. We then talked about Gundam X, and then went a long while until these past few weeks when we talked about it happening to Leisner, and now this week with Ideon.
I feel like this is just the curse that a lot of mecha shows happen to have, where they just get cut before they could really end. And maybe they'll get a compilation movie or like a movie with a true ending, but it keeps happening.
It's definitely a curse that feels like hyper specific to Sunrise specifically.
To Sunrise especially.
I can't recall a lot of like other studios being hit to the same degree. I mean, I was planning to save it later, but I don't know. I guess Evangelion, technically fell to the curse if you want to like stick to the original idea that, yeah, those last 2 episodes of the TV show were ass.
Yeah.
That kind of warranted.
Yeah.
You know, unsurprisingly, kind of like Ideon, 2 movies.
2 movies.
Because that was what eventually was able to give Ideon its conclusion. Tomino did not give up on this, even though it took a while, you know, like at least like a year and a half to get back around to Ideon, because in the summer of 1982, 2 movies would be released. The first was A Contact, which served as a compilation of the TV anime, which, when you consider like how many episodes were in that show to begin with, it's like, man, even for a feature-length film, kind of like when we were discussing the Leisner OVAs. Boy, you feel it jumping around all over the place.
Yeah, you sure do.
I mean, you get the gist of what is happening, obviously, but you know you're missing key like or at least minor character details that would like flesh things out more. But the actual important movie of the 2 that was like after it, or at least released at the same time, I forget. Like the dates that I could find for these were a bit inconsistent online. Like, but the second movie, which was supposed to follow after it, is Be Invoked. The true ending that basically follows after, close to where the TV series ends, and basically, like, whatever, like, that fucking ending they had to come up with for the TV anime because they got canceled, they were like, yeah, ignore that. This is the real ending.
Yeah, this is the real ending.
And, yeah, you could see that with how the show went, followed by these 2 movies, the original Evangelion starts to feel a lot less special when they follow this exact same roadmap to get out of their shit.
Yeah, also, I can't believe... No, this is like the second Tomino project that got canceled, and then he got a movie out of it to tell his real ending.
That man was going through some stuff.
Oh, yeah,
during this time.
Okay, I want to say, no matter what we say about Ideon, the show has nothing on Victory Gundam still, when it comes to how dark it gets. Let me put that way.
You saying that after watching these movies over the weekend... You genuinely terrify me.
You should be. Like, Victory Gundam is Tomino at his most spiteful, at his most, like...
Oh.
It's Tomino when he's without his meds, when he's at his most depressed, and he's at his most spiteful. Let me put it that way.
Oh, God.
But let's get into the action.
I just have this mix of, like, horror and laughter. Like, I have no choice but to, like, laugh in the face of despair.
Yeah, that's a good reaction to that, I feel.
What a fucking anime.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to, like, the remaining sections of the podcast, and we already feel exhausted. We already feel like we're at the end.
That's how I feel. Jesus. There's a reason we kept this as our, like, penultimate episode.
We gotta make you feel what that despair is like right before you get to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
We can, I guess, quickly go over our primary mecha, of which I decided to kind of single it out to one robot and one ship, since, you know, the two of them are pretty interlinked with each other. The robot in question, obviously, is the one whose name christens the title of the anime. It is the Ideon. You know, a robot that is technically a combiner, because it is made up of 3, like, large-scale vehicles that initially, when they are first introduced, they go by, like, a specific set of names that I believe are meant to, like, correspond with, like, when they are in their land vehicle form, as it were, because they come off as, like, very toyetic, like, giant, hyper advanced, like, tanks or APCs is what it looks like. But as the show goes on, and it clearly lives up to its title as being a space runaway and going through space, the 3 vehicles themselves take on more like giant toy looking, like, spaceships, as it were.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, their land vehicle forms when they're first found are the Soul Conver, Soul Amber, and Soul Viner. But when it gets to the rest of the series, the names actually, they start to have more of, like, what makes you think, oh yeah, these are parts that make up the Ideon. You know, it's the Ideo Delta, Ideo Nova, and Ideo Buster. They always combine in, like, the same, you know, vertical arrangement akin to, like, you know, what Tomino had done years before with Zambot 3. And the result is humongous. Even then, humongous, I feel, is almost like underselling it compared to, like, the other Jai robots of the era. This thing is massive.
It's so big. I think it's like one of the bigger super robots out there.
I had to pull up the profile for this robot on MAHQ because thankfully it had a section for this. Its height, according to what has been recorded, 105 meters.
It's insane.
Think about what the average height would have to be for a lot of other giant robots, you know? Like, this is easily, like, 5 times the average height of one of those.
Like, the only thing that's maybe bigger than it is, like, the Gunbuster, but that's what I can think of right now. But otherwise, it is, like, it towers over almost everything else.
Yeah, especially for, you know, a robot from 1980s. Like, there would obviously be more godlike robots in size and proportion that would, like, come out after and surpass it. But you can imagine that, like, with this gargantuan size, you could see how this would kind of be like the first step in showing that Ideon has its place as an influential robot in the pantheon of the entire genre. Yeah. And with the size, as you might imagine, it's got quite a lot of armaments to boot, mostly a lot of missiles from, like, an insane amount of, like, pods that can just, like, shoot out of, like, when, like, different panels on its various appendages and body parts just, like, open up and you see them fire everywhere. It's an effect that, I'll admit, even before watching this, I was aware that this was the case with Ideon, like the visual of when it fires off all of its missiles and lasers in every single direction. One of my favorite super niche video games from one of the greatest video game developers of all time, Treasure, Bangayo, its signature, like, attack that you engage all the time, where you just release an omnidirectional salvo of missiles and projectiles, is in a way a clear homage to, like, the more common attacks that the Ideon would demonstrate in this anime.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, you see it and you're like, oh, this is where they got that attack idea from.
Yeah, just, like, fire everything in all directions, you know, fuck collateral, everything that is a threat must go. Especially when, like, it has, like, an additional weapon that is separate from, like, all the embedded weaponry. The Ideon gun. This thing's massive.
Okay, so I know we have to make a reference to it, but I love how the Ideon gun is portrayed in Super Robot Wars, because
Oh, yeah.
every weapon in Super Robot Wars has like a range, as most tactical games do. The Ideon gun's range is infinity.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
the entire map.
Ideon has only ever been in, I think, only 2 Super Robot Wars games in total. And it is so fascinating to look at, like, the challenge Band Presto obviously had on their plate, which is, how the fuck do you balance this thing for a video game?
Yeah. The answer is, we just made the most broken robots in our entire series. Whoops.
Yeah, with, I think, Alpha 3 being the less broken of the two, but still kind of, like, absurd.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, like, in both games, though, they do have the unique fail state where it is, like, under no circumstances should you ever let the Ideon be destroyed.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing is, don't let this thing go down to 0 HP, or you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, because its energy source, the energy which allows the Ideon gun to be the massive world-destroying beam of death that it is, as well as one extra attack that it has called the Ideon Swords. Once again, much like with how the Ideon gun is technically a cannon with infinite range, these quote-unquote swords are more like beams of light emitting from the hand that don't cut off at any points to resemble a sword. It's just... It's just an infinite beam from both hands, and that robot will swing them like it's a sword and cleave through anything in its path.
Oh, yeah. So, what we're getting at is, this thing is kind of absurd when it comes to its power level. Jesus Christ.
All thanks to the Ide, the energy source that it carries within it, and the other thing being powered from it by proxy, which is the solo ship, the ship that is used to transport the Ideon around the galaxy as our characters are trying to flee the attacks of the Buff Clan. Which, I mean, like, even though we said the name earlier, never really got to saying, yo, Buff Clan is a funny name for an antagonist.
The Buff.
It clearly makes you think of something else.
Yeah, it doesn't make me think of intimidating space antagonists. It just makes me think of a bunch of guys.
It's like anime Vulcans, like anime version of Vulcans from Star Trek. If they were like even more shitty.
Yeah, they're not Klingons. They're not like or anything like that.
Or I guess, wait, was it technically Romulans? I think it was, right? Because Vulcans was Spock.
Yeah, you're
specifically.
thinking Romulans, actually.
Yeah, because both of them, like it's the haircuts, it's the trims on their bangs that give it away, really, when you look at their designs. Mm-hmm. But yes, like the solo ship, which is like an ancient ship about as old as the Ideon itself, used to transport the different pieces of the Ideon, and because of this is something that you typically expect to see with a lot of robot series, where it is like, if there are if there's an element of a journey to the entire story, then naturally, like, the character's home base has to be as mobile as the robot itself. So it's typically like a spaceship. Yeah. And, like, typically you would expect that spaceship to be like a significant amount larger than the robot in question so that it could actually store it inside. That's not the case with the Ideon due to how absolutely gigantic it is, that the Ideon's different vehicles are stored on top of the ship as it, like, cruises through space. And then when the Ideon combines, if it needs to, it can just stand on the solo ship like it is its own personal floating platform.
It is, yeah. Like, I have never seen anything like this before when it comes to Super Robot.
Yeah. In addition, with the solo ship also being able to store the Ideon gun, when you combine all three, Ideon standing on the ship with the gun in hand, it's like you now have, like, a god-sized robot equivalent of a mobile turret platform.
Yeah, and you could probably imagine the amount of destruction that happens when they combine together.
Yeah, it's pretty devastating. Like, there's no shortage of energy this thing can produce because of the Ide, although there are times where the Ide just might not provide the energy to let the ship or the robot do what it needs to, because this is an energy source that, on top of its infinite potential, is a sentient being in and of itself. It is an energy with a will of its own that no one understands to start. But the more you understand it, you might regret ever learning what it actually is or what it thinks of you.
Oh, we will get to that. I love how they made this thing that would be just like a typical super robot design and make it something more and terrifying actually once you know what it's about.
Yeah, like this way more toy-like robot, which, funny enough, because of its color scheme being predominantly red, made me like think a lot of the gun cannon.
Yeah.
Got some of that, which also surprises me even more that like the original design for Ideon was not something that Kunio Okawara cooked up.
That's so yeah.
And I guess just one last thing that kind of solidifies how terrifying Ideon is, it goes by a different name as referred to by the antagonist, by the various members of the Buff Clan. They just refer to it as a giant god.
Yeah, that's you know what, that's appropriate actually.
If it wasn't for the importance of the Space Runaway part of the title, I could absolutely have seen an alternate, like version of the title that is just Giant God Ideon. Something that just gets way more direct and to the point about what the robot is at its core.
What it actually is, yeah.
We do have some characters to get to as well.
Mm.
There are a lot that, understandably, we cannot even, get through all of them. We can only give, a small fraction. And for me personally, as I'm usually tasked with putting together the show notes, it was understandably a bit harder since I was going into this with only my knowledge being based on what I saw in the two movies instead of the TV anime. But I was at least able to narrow things down to what I think are the best three characters to look at as far as what they represent for supporting the themes of the anime.
Yeah, I think you put down the best three characters though. These are who represent the series at least.
The first being Cosmo Yuki, one of 6 pilots in Ideon, because yes, with all the 3 parts that combine to form the giant robot, each vehicle technically needs 2 people. One is the driver and one is the gunner. But Cosmo Yuki stands out as the one that you remember the most, least of all because of that glorious afro.
Why'd they give him such a giant red afro?
Personally, I choose to ask the question, why does this dude with an afro clearly have Amuro's face drawn on him?
He might as well be I was gonna say a traumatized Amuro, but okay, a way more traumatized Amuro.
He fills the role of, the teenage kid protagonist that gets to pilot the robot. That is the whole point of him and the other pilots of the Ideon at their core. What makes Cosmo Yuki stand out, even compared to a lot of those, is that there's a ton of attention given to basically, I guess, him demonstrating the 2 sides of what the human cast in this in this entire story are feeling, because a lot of the humans in this show, the humans of the planet Solo that excavated the Ideon and got drawn into a conflict with the Buff Clan and that they have to be on the run, as you might imagine, having to give up their home and just be constantly on the lam throughout the known universe is something that a lot of people on the ship are not taking to very well. Yeah. Cosmo is able to keep himself together a lot of the time and has a lot of insightfulness about what is going on and tries his best, not successfully all the time, but tries his best to be somewhat of a reasonable voice among a very panicked crowd, or at least among the other pilots of the Ideon that are way more where they're under a lot more emotional duress than he is. Yeah. But just because he's able to demonstrate that gets into the other side of him, which is he is still not immune to the trauma and the horrors of war. He's very prone to fall back into that the sense of despair and just overwhelming anger of wanting to get back at the enemy for for just continuing to kill their kind and taking away the people that are close to him. Yeah,
the way I put it is that when we watched Zambal 3, Kappei was still a super robot type of protagonist. Hot-blooded.
Yeah.
And just always follows his heart, everything. Cosmo is more of I guess I put him a real robot protagonist put into a super robot show.
Yeah.
He's still got that hot-bloodedness in him, but he's a lot more I don't know, yeah, I think you already put it down. He's he's still like a little more rational in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he's still willing to like hear someone out if he thinks that it can get them closer to better understanding like their situation and why they're in it in the first place.
Yeah.
Which that side of him I would say kind of like leads into our second character, who is like definitely meant, I feel, to be as much of the full embodiment of that kind of like rational persona, and that is Bess Jordan, who ends up, initially during the start of the conflict does pilot one of the Ideon machines, mostly because of like just the commotion of like the attack just coming out of nowhere, and that like he technically was not part of the archaeologist crew that had dug up the Ideon. He was like, I guess, like from the main colony city that was going there to investigate and see, okay, what the hell did you guys dig up anyway? Before, like everyone else, getting thrust into a situation they did not really ask for. But because he technically has like military and like kind of like captain experience, he ends up being the captain of the solo ship, and like trying to be like the center of more of like the morale for the crew, and making sure that no one like that everyone is able to stay focused on their goals and like staying alive during this war with the Buff Clan. And you could see as much because like there's a lot of characters that start making very irrational choices like as a result of this battle going on, that even before Cosmo can really like kind of speak up about it, Bez will usually be the one that like that basically like takes the floor, as his duty as the captain of the ship.
Yeah, he's definitely, like you mentioned, like the moral center of like the entire crew, and he's the one who basically keeps them on their like goal. Like, I was gonna compare him to Bright, but he's less of a dick than Bright could be.
Yeah, I mean, like that was definitely a case where it is like, I think you can obviously tell as much because the reason Bess ends up in the position is because he at least has prior experience in other roles that made him qualified. Yeah. Whereas the whole deal with Bright and why he ends up doing the things that he does in the original Gundam is because he was a junior officer. He had no captain experience. He had the position like ungratefully thrown at his feet when the previous captain died.
Yeah, it's a lot of people getting thrust into situations they're not prepared for in that original Gundam.
It definitely lines up a bit more with like what you were what you were describing with Cosmo as well, where it is like, yeah, for this being clearly a super robot show, like a lot of our primary characters are still following a lot of like the type of like real robot character traits and personalities that you expect in that subgenre.
Yeah, it's like, I just think it's fascinating because like when we talked about Zabot 3 way earlier in the year, the characters still felt like they belonged in a super robot show. It just, they had real consequences. This one is still like, it feels like a mix of both.
But like the short of it, Bez being the captain is ultimately very much a good thing for keeping the ship together, because one of the things that leads to a lot of like irrational like actions and thoughts coming from like certain members of the crew is due to the fact that because these aliens, the Buff Clan, which like for context, both humanity and the Buff Clan, whenever they talk about the other race, they always talk about them like using the word alien to describe them, despite both looking very human.
Yeah.
But which, there's your subtle, like, or I guess not so subtle, fantastical racism for you. Your racism allegory in this fucking merry robot action anime about protecting the peace of the world and your neighbor. Nah, I couldn't even finish that. Fuck it.
We can only
we already used the joke at the beginning. It doesn't have any more legs.
We can only stretch the bit so far.
But the greater point is that yes, like there's a lot of like irrational actions being taken that are like fueled by like personal biases and racism against like the other clan of humanoids that are functionally not that different, which is why we have our third character who essentially puts the crew of the solo ship in a position where they have to get past that predisposition they have towards their enemy, and that is Kerala Ajiba. She is a person of the Buff Clan. She is actually like I think it's the second daughter of a noble clan with a noble family within the Buff Clan. who, like, at the start of the story, because of feelings that she has, mostly about, like, just how much her older sister and her father suck shit.
Yeah.
That she ends up, taking a scout craft to the planet Solo, where, like, the Ideon has been excavated, to try and, like, survey it firsthand, like, get, like, a bit of, like, glory on her hands first and foremost, so that she could be like, yes, we discovered the Ide, and we have also discovered these other, like, hyper intelligent like, sentient beings that are like us, except because of her shenanigans going out there, the other members of the Buff clan, fearing that she might be in danger now, just decide to go on the offensive to, like, attack the humans of Solo, so that they assume that it is them doing the right thing, but really they are just making like a chain of horrible, stupid mistakes that eventually lead Kerala, like, winding up on the Solo ship among the other refugees. People realize she is not registered on the list of refugees because she's not from the planet. Everyone starts hating her, using her as the scapegoat for why the conflict started in the first place, even though she wasn't the one that that pulled the trigger to, like, start blowing up the planet. And, like, with how it ties back to the previous two characters that I talked about, Cosmo and Bess, they're like, this is where their more rational sides kind of come out and try to, like, help define the moral center for everyone on the ship. They are the first to, like, try and, like, show actual trust and, like, come to an understanding with Kerala, despite her being quote unquote an alien.
Yeah, Kerala is someone who is just, she kind of starts a series of events that starts the series, but it's kind of on them for, like, shooting first and not asking questions. They just use her as a scapegoat for everything that went wrong, and she doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, like, especially when you look at the rest of her family. I mean, like, part of it, like, again, there were, like, some selfish reasons of, like, glory seeking behind it, but you can tell that, like, she was not someone that really, like, ascribed to, like, I guess, like, the same kind of, like, high and mighty, like, ideals or personalities that, like, her sister Harulu has, and especially her father Doga. The latter of which, I guess, to add to the shittiness of it, he has two daughters. Boy, does he wish at least one of those daughters could have been a son. That's all he ever wanted.
Oh, boy.
Why did he have to have two girls?
In case you want to know what kind of person he is.
Or Tomino, which...
Or like, Tomino.
Okay, so by this point, I can count on a single hand that I have watched 4 mecha anime that have all been directed by Yoshiyuki Tomino.
Right.
It's Zambot 3, the original Mobile Suit Gundam, now Ideon, or at least, the movie versions, technically, and Overman King Gainer. Obviously, one of those 4 is not like the other, since it came out way, way after the fact, and Tomino was in a much different place. But between these 3 that were, like, made in the span of, like, from 97 to 1980, it's like, it definitely got me thinking, how much? Like, what do you think the split is in Ideon's case of the way that the female characters, a lot of them being written, how much of that stems from just the general, like, casual misogyny and sexism of the 70s versus, a potentially bad experience that Tomino might have had with other women that he was, like, pulling that inspiration from to try and flesh out these characters? Because with the exception of Karala, oh my god, you're kind of shocked by multiple female characters are at the center of, like, extremely irrational and terrible decisions that ultimately are what push the story forward towards the conclusion that it is meant for.
Okay. Considering how Gundam romances are like and how the ladies are written in Tomino shows, I would say a good 80% of it is just Tomino being weird with women. There is just something about the way he writes them that is just like,
yeah,
what has a woman done to you? Why? Like, it's one of those things that kind of transcends even, like, the misogyny of the era, where it's like, what kind of ideas do you have about women, dude?
Yeah, because I can at least say that, like, when I watched Overman King Gainer, I did not get that, like, indication nearly as much, because, again, by that point, he had clearly mellowed out from a lot of his, like, dark and depressive mood swings that he was having, in the decades prior.
Yeah.
is just going back to, as these three shows, especially when it was like, well, even in Zambot's case, I remember I posited the idea with like the birthday episode. If it was a case where that felt more like it was just wanting to be spiteful and mean to a child because either Tomino felt like, he was that way to another girl when he was in an elementary schooler's like age range, or maybe more twisted. Maybe he thought back to how kids act that way towards girls when they're in elementary school. We're like, man, I never got to do that.
I don't know.
But regardless, like, Kerala definitely stands out as like basically like the most important female character because she is the one who is not like abjectly horrible and just being first to give in to like a lot of like prejudices and like shitty irrational behavior.
Yeah, she is oh boy, because the other ladies in this show are
some of them do get better over time. We can't really say the same for her sister though. She's still pretty horrid even to the very end.
No, her sister is a giant bitch.
Yeah, but that's our three characters we could really take the time to focus on. Like, just going based off what you see in the movie, there's not much that you could really grasp from, like the rest of the Ideon pilots or like some of the other members of the Buff clan that you end up seeing. These three were picked for a very good reason. They kind of are like the most emblematic of like what the show is trying to convey to you. So why do we recommend this?
Yeah, after everything we said, why do we still recommend this show?
Like, there's no getting around it. We know how it is. This show throws fucking dark.
Yeah.
Like, it is no small feat how it just outdoes what Tomino had been, like, testing the waters with the first time in Zambot 3. That it ended up being a show that is, like, just a confluence of, like, the stresses and negative feelings that he had following, like, Gundam's initial failure and, like, just trying to, admittedly, he's still pulling through and like working on salvaging like the reputation of that show, with all like getting Bandai to sponsor it and eventually getting the 3-part movie deal. But it was still a rough time that everything you see that goes wrong in Ideon for the characters, you'd have to be like completely blind to not think that it was coming from a place of like personal like cynicism or general misanthropy. Tomino was clearly like feeling that in 1980.
Yeah. One thing I'll say, and this is definitely something we'll get into a little more in our spoiler section, is this show and this movie are dark. They're incredibly bleak, but it's not nihilistic. That's the important point. Despite everything, this is not a nihilistic work.
This still is an anime that has something very clear that it wants to say about just like the nature of like human irrationality and prejudices. And even like placing, surprisingly, I feel like this is something where, because it got pitched deceptively as a super robot anime, Sunrise robot shows had these already into varying degrees, some of which I would say, especially in Gundam, might have been the most inappropriate about this. The idea of having like toddler-aged kids, I am going to say, present among your cast of characters in what is a war story. But somehow it makes the most sense that it is here in Ideon because of how much it ties into like that being part of the message, where it is like a lot of like the biases and prejudices that like bring about like these calamities and like trauma on other people are the works of adults. If anything, it is like the children, they have like a purity to them that the show wants to emphasize as like the sort of hope spots to like, if not change like the adults for the better, give them something like more meaningful to like live their lives for, then at the very least have like the children be in a position where they can eventually like lead the charge as the new generation.
Yeah.
And especially because the presence of children specifically has something of an overt link to the Ideon that, like, when people realize is kind of difficult to ignore.
Yeah, which is something we'll get into a little more.
The nature of the Ide itself is a whole fucking thing. But yeah, like we say, like, it has a light at the end of the tunnel. There is like clearly like messages it is trying to get across, as much as it feels like it is going the nihilistic route, because the story, for every time someone tries to promote like a more positive outlook that people should like try and like work towards, most often like those people are just going to ignore it to keep like the same cycle of death and destruction going. But it does eventually end like in a way that's positive, as you could say, like in a sense. Especially because of the movie Be Invoked. Like this was like, because of like me not watching the TV anime, I had to like look up what synopses I could find of the episodes to like see if they were accurate, and maybe you can like double confirm this for me as well. But like the TV anime's ending, that is just straight up the end, no moral, right? Is that, am I correct in reading it that way?
No, you're right. It's the end, no moral, it's over.
Because when you look at like how the events go between the final TV anime episode and like the movie end, based entirely on just a text synopsis, it would make you think initially, oh, it's just the same. But no, like Be Invoked is kind of like it's a major part of Ideon being cemented as an important part of the mecha genre. Probably would not have landed nearly as strong of a legacy if Tomino did not return to it a year and a half later to essentially finish the job.
I'm gonna just say it now. If we had only gotten the series and we only got like that TV ending, we would probably not be talking about Ideon today, because that ending is kind of ass, actually.
It really is just the most, like, not even an in-universe justification. It almost comes off as like the creator going, fuck this, we're done.
It's done. Fuck you.
Which, to be fair, would have been like a Tomino-ass move, all things considered.
I mean, yes, it would fit him, but yeah.
But it would kind of betray what, everyone was wanting Ideon to ultimately be about in its real conclusion, and I think would be ultimately a betrayal of, like, who Tomino truly was at his core, even with all of, like, the extremely, like, depressive and outspoken, angry aspects of his, like, outward character, I would say.
Yeah, like, that's a good way to put it. It's just, the movie is what makes this worthwhile. Or at least the way I'd say it is, watch the series and then watch the movie afterwards, if you have the time for it.
Yeah, so yeah, that's basically the watch order if you are someone that has all the free time that they want and like feel like, yeah, I'm totally down for watching, like few dozen long episodes of anime and then just like going into a movie. That's fine. But obviously, if you just want like the kind of like how we've talked about it with like other compilations as an option, they don't replace the TV anime, but they're perfectly fine as like your stopgap solution to just to get an experience that covers like the core story and I think most importantly in Ideon's case, the theme and message it is trying to tell you.
Yeah.
So as far as where to watch this incredibly bleak anime, I mean, obviously, it being bleak makes it difficult to watch in that sense, but it's also difficult to watch of a different sort because of lack of options. You're not going to find this on official streaming services, and I had to double check. I was kind of shocked, but like I don't think Discotech even got the rights to like do a new Blu-ray for it. At least not that I saw. All I saw when I searched Space Runaway Ideon Blu-rays were like stuff that was printed from like several years ago and significantly more expensive.
Yeah, you are not getting, unless like Discotech in the future decides to like license this show, which is very possible, by the way. Your options are what it's always been.
Sail the high seas. Yeah. That's basically all we got for the first half of this episode, where we've had to relay quite a lot of heavy shit. And now we're going to tell you some even more heavy shit in our spoiler section.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, just, obviously continue listening on if you've already experienced Ideon, or, you know what? If you feel like you're in a position in your life where you don't feel like watching any media that has, like, an untold number of tragedies, stop this podcast as well. Yeah, don't stop the podcast to watch Ideon. If it's not for you, just stop the podcast and be like, maybe this is not for me. That's fine. We already have so many other episodes of this podcast prior that can recommend you something else that is probably more fitting to your palate.
Okay, I just want to say, before we go to our full discussion, I need to chill us out one last time. If you want an anime
All right.
that makes you feel good, that makes you have hope, and makes you gives you a good feeling, a good hopeful feeling, watch Turn A Gundam. It's all about that. Now we can go.
Yeah. Take notes of that, you at home, if you haven't already gone deep down the Gundam rabbit hole like Neff did all those years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically our disclaimer. See you on the other side. Okay, so what the fuck?
Space Runaway Ideon. That opening is way too cheery for what the show actually is.
I mean, I already felt like a huge discrepancy, I feel like, when I was watching the original Mobile Suit Gundam, knowing what the story of the 1 Year War is about, and every episode just starts with Moe Agane, Moe Agane. That's like that shit. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching?
So what was the what the fuck for?
That was basically what everyone feels after they have watched these two movies back to back for the first time.
It's like, you know what the fuck is a good reaction. That's a very appropriate one for what is essentially
the death of the known universe.
The death of the known universe and everybody you know.
Though I guess before we get to the first minute of Be in Vogue, we might as well summarize very, very quickly what the fuck happened in the prior movie, A Contact, since that was basically the compilation of TV events. We had the important bits, the solo ship with the Ideon being excavated and then leaving the planet solo when the Buff Clan decides that they want the Ideon for themselves because of its energy, so they're just chasing it all over the galaxy. The humans of Earth do not want the Ideon anywhere near them because it is basically just a beacon for the Buff Clan to keep showing up everywhere. We see multiple female characters demonstrating, like we described, just how incredibly bitchy they are, save for Kerala. And then the finale, the big climactic battle that they choose to have as the focus in A Contact, is an incident where some of the kids, one of which being a baby, accidentally sneaks on board the Ideon itself. They see the battle up close firsthand, and then the Ideon displays a terrifying power when said baby is in mortal danger. That is actually where as far as how the movies choose to portray it, I don't know if the TV anime made it be revealed sooner. I think this is meant to be the reveal of the Ideon sword attack specifically, when Lou basically starts crying that the power of the Ide just goes into overdrive.
Yeah, that's your first hint that there's something up with this robot actually.
Yeah, just the weird fluctuations of power that it has, the fact that it won't always respond to their commands when they want it, and very much seem to go way overboard on its self-preservation because of the fact that there was a child, a very young child, in fact, that was in danger of being killed. Yeah. Everyone surmises by the end of that first movie that the Ide has ascensions, and it leaves them all very concerned. Oh yeah. Also we had the opposite experience watching the movies, because now you know how I felt watching that first Leisner OVA. Because it's exactly like that. I definitely felt it. I know what it meant. Even though I knew going in that it was this first Laser OVA is jumping around a whole lot. There's no way to defend this.
But here you have also, I guess I could say, added on to that, the Tomino flavor with the weird way he writes scenes and dialogues.
Oh, absolutely.
Which
and to the point where it's it does make me fascinated at some point to watch the TV anime episodes as well, just to see where I recognize the different bits that are edited together. And if I had to guess, I would not be surprised if the way that he edited those bits together in the movie possibly give off an even different context than what the TV anime did, because I have heard stories about his penchant for editing, and how it has a very specific and wild flair to it that is unique compared to any other editors in the industry.
It is so unique. It's like like his style is like his style. Like you recognize it after after watching a few of his shows, and it's very apparent here where he remixes it, and it's, I guess, a little different from the show itself, which kind of makes it a little nonsensical at times. But that is also Tomino.
Yeah, that's basically kind of like the core of his editing, is that there is a bit of nonsensical nature to it. But we're not talking about A Contact. No. We only talked about like the shortest summarization of it. We got to talk about Be Invoked, in which the movie starts with suffering continuing for the cast as they've landed on another planet of the colonists. And the colonists already want the ship fucking gone. It's like, bro, you're a curse on everyone. Get out of here. We even get introduced to a character that Cosmo is friends with. Fucking hell, Tomino. Like, you literally called the character Kitty Kitten. Yeah, sure. Sure. Let her get to like the age of consent, and then we can legally change her name to Cat. But yes, again, this gets into the editing that Tomino goes with, because this was part of me looking up the synopses for the TV anime, and then I'm pretty sure her introduction was during the events that were portrayed in A Contact, but this makes it seem like this was after that.
Yeah.
And it's made even more hilarious when minutes after we see her introduced, being friendly with Cosmo, we see all the colonists, including her, on the planet get fucking killed, and Cosmo just yelling in anguish, "Cue title card!"
This is not a joke, by the way.
What the fuck, dude?
This is not a joke. We literally see her head fly off, being reflected on Cosmo's helmet, and then he just does. By the way, that pose with him going "Dap you, Buff Clan," and the title card coming up is a meme. Is a big meme in the community.
I knew it. I had a feeling it absolutely was.
You have to include it in the episode, in the YouTube episode, so people know.
Yeah, that is a screen cap for the show materials, no doubts.
It is such a, why did you open your movie like this?
And also to remind people about the certain habits that Tomino had as far as the shows that he worked on during this time period. You wrote this down in order to remind me. Man, can you believe that the anime that Tomino worked on after Ideon was Combat Mecha Zabungle?
That blows my mind, because Zabungle is the farthest, it's the farthest away in tone compared to Ideon. That thing is just Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it is. It is fucking slapstick shenanigans with giant robots. I get it. It makes enough sense that Tomino, his dark depressive moments are things that basically come in a sine wave motion, essentially.
Pretty much, that guy goes all over the place. After Zabungle, it was Dunbine, which is, I would put it in the middle of his the Kill 'Em All phase.
Yeah, kind of middle of the road, not too bad, and obviously Elgheim, and then eventually having to work back down to that low point with Zeta.
Oh yeah, and then that's you're back. Oh, you're back on your bullshit for this one. Oh boy.
And getting back more to Tomino's insane style of editing that only he could come up with, following that title card, that fucking mimetic sequence, we get the opening credits with more events of the TV show being displayed picture in picture, which is for a 2-movie plan where you have to compress the events of a 39 episode anime, I get it. In some ways, that is a genius method of efficiency for this type of project. It only comes off as insane because this is Tomino who is in charge of it.
Does it make any sense? No, it fucking doesn't.
No, it's who cares? Look at this shot of Ideon using the sword ability to split an entire planet in half.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Now you're caught up.
You know, what the score is, you know how much the crew's been suffering, and you know how much of a scary motherfucker this giant robot is.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need to know. That, there you go. You're caught up now. Good luck. Yeah. Here's some more suffering for you.
We go past the opening credits. We get a brief hint of that Kerala, now that she has become much more ingrained into the crew of the solo ship, no longer being looked at with the same prejudice as before. least of all because of like Bess being the one that has shown the most kindness, that she puts her hand over her abdomen in a pan down and like kind of like stumbling on her part that makes it seem like, you got a baby kicking in there? And that was like the first hint of that before it eventually gets outright said, where her and another crew member, Jolliver, get whisked away by the Ide's power because it activates in the presence of her father's flagship just showing up in close proximity. It surprises everyone, especially the Supreme Commander, just being like, what the fuck? How'd you get in here? And the reason for that is simple. They were brought there because it was the Ide's intention, presumably as an attempt to try and like make peace again between these two species, try to get them to an understanding, especially because we saw the very obvious hint a few minutes before that Kerala just outright says it. Yes, she is pregnant. She made love with a human from that planet. They call it Solo, but the Buff Clan have their own name, which is a nice detail. Like they refer to them as the Logo Dao aliens. Yeah. Because, from their perspective, they don't know that they have an Earth of their own. They that was just a colony planet, and they just referred to them as, the aliens from the planet that they had a separate name for. It shows, you would think with all the death and destruction that it piles on you, that the show would not give a rat's ass about, like, even the slightest bit of world building, but they still gave some thought to it. That's at least appreciated.
Yeah, there's some thought into what the world is like. A little.
It's just too bad that there's no thoughts going on between any of these irrational motherfuckers where Kerala's dad just wants to kill her on the spot. And then Kerala, in return, is like, all right, but if you're going to try and kill me and my baby, I'll kill you as well.
Yeah, his rationale is, you have defiled your body with the baby of an alien species. Now I have to kill you out of mercy. It's like, what the fuck, dude?
Even though it's not really mercy, considering what we know about Doga and how he probably would have liked to have another excuse earlier on to just be rid of Kerala.
Probably.
That entire, potential, peace negotiation did not work at all. It just falls through. A battle breaks out again, fucking 10 plus minutes in. Even compared to, I think, the first 10 minutes of A Contact, this is a significantly more chaotic battle that breaks out, where the ships basically warp out with, the Doga's flagship directly above the Solo ship in super close proximity. So it's not just going to be space battles outside. We have boarding parties that are trying to make their way into the Solo ship to kill the crew inside.
It's just so chaotic is a good way to describe this whole movie, because there are some quiet moments, but otherwise it is an hour and 30 minutes of violence, of just nonstop violence.
Yes. With violence continuing to increase the death toll, where Kerala and Jolliver are apparently KIA trying to escape in a Buff Clan escape craft. Except, not. They didn't, because the Ide continues to work in strange ways that those two are still alive after the ship blew up, literally floating in space with a protective aura around it. We can tell why, because we know what the Ide thinks about children and how much value it places on them. I guess, fuck it, I might as well make this a religiously charged joke. I guess Ide is up there with the Christian God in thinking that all life begins at conception.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing more pure than an unborn fetus.
I feel bad about that just because of, the obvious implication that the Ide would probably be very, very upset about abortion.
Oh, I don't want to ask the Ide what it thinks about that. I don't
want to ask Ide about anything in life, really.
That also is fair.
It's a wild sequence, especially with just how short the time frame is when it looks like Kerala and Jolliver get killed before it's revealed, that they're fine. But you said as much. That was still enough time in between for Cosmo to have another breakdown over just the fact that this entire battle between both sides is claiming so many lives.
Yeah, this is like a Tomino special, or where you will have a character yell and curse about why he has to kill while killing millions or something.
Yeah, it's rough. At least Cosmo has like no delusions of trying to like play the pacifist route, because even from the beginning, he and everyone were like, "Bro, we got to do what we can to survive. That's just how it is.
Fuck this. They're after us. We got to get them too."
Yeah, they're after us. Quick, the captain orders everyone on the solo ship, women and children included, to prepare for like the oncoming boarding parties, which admittedly, because of all the editing, this gets into, again, like kind of the weirdness of how Tomino does these things for his compilations. It initially leads you to believe that the boarding party that's going to like try and kill the crew of the solo ship, like I was initially thinking it was going to lead up to that moment, that other moment that is a meme in the community. But no, it doesn't.
Not yet, but yes. If you know, you know.
Not yet, but yes, everyone is being like told to like prepare for the worst, you know, even the people that are not combatants, which then leads to one of our other, like, I guess semi-important characters, Cheryl, who by this point in the story, you know, started out also unsurprisingly being another female character who is like extremely bitchy and is prone to making a lot of irrational decisions that like kick off a lot of bad events in the story. But she's moved past that to basically being an extremely depressed alcoholic because people that she was starting to like, that were like close to her, and one person she was having romantic feelings for, someone who, by the way, was actually another straggler from the Buff clan who was left behind. Yeah. And so losing that guy basically puts a very concerning idea in her head.
Oh, boy.
She is going to take Lou, the baby, quote, for research, because she knows how Ide's power is linked to children. And like, while she is technically right, she has gotten a better sense of like what it is that is causing the Ide's power to like output as strong as it is. It's still massively fucking unhinged that she goes up to like this kid that is obviously being taken care of by like all like his other siblings, you know, like basically like their parents are gone, and the closest thing that Lou has to a mother is still like a teenager, said teenager who in a fit of duress in a contact tried to kill Kerala. Like did we mention enough times that Tomino had like very weird thoughts about women?
Yeah. No, it's gonna get worse. It's only gonna get worse the more we watch this movie.
Yeah, because now Cheryl has taken Lou into a room, you know, to take care of him, you know, trying to act all motherly, but you could tell there's like, it just feels so wrong that even when the kids outside the door are like trying to like ask her to give Lou back, it's like, she just, like the framing of her looking through like through the door and glaring at them is so fucking sinister.
It's so unsettling, just the way she's framed in that one scene.
Like, girl, I know that like you are on the money about how things are working, but you are going about it in the completely wrong way.
It's kind of a terrible plan.
No, it's a few moments from now. We'll get to it. But we first have to mention another thing that has been very prevalent throughout the story of Ideon, and that is the existence of comets. Like the cast have on occasion seen a lot of them basically like flying through the vastness of space. Most of the time, in the direction of like their home planet, the Earth, as well as like other planets where like humanity has spread out to, but not really hitting them necessarily. Like each time it shows it passing by, you notice it almost seems like it's getting like closer and closer. But the Buff clan also notices that these comets have been a thing, so they decide to take advantage of this part of their latest plan to like use their current battle to lure the Ideon and the solo ship in the direction of the comet, so it will just wipe it out on impact.
Yeah.
You know, and they decide, okay, the best option we have for this, it's a bit hasty because the damage to the ship makes it impossible to deploy normally. We gotta pull off the paneling on the ship to deploy the Ideon gun in order to blow up the comet. It makes sense. Yeah. Cheryl, however, intends to do something even crazier. I'm just gonna read what I wrote. I put it out in all caps because I could not believe it. And I had to double check to make sure. Yes, this was specific to be invoked. I don't think any TV episode had even gotten to this point where Cheryl thought to stand in front of the comet with Lou in hand, holding it up like an offering to God. Woman, please.
Jesus Christ. What is this? Why is this?
I mean, I get it. The framing definitely makes it like hammer home even more the fact that the Ideon itself is, quote, the giant god, but it's still a fucking absurd case of like reckless child endangerment. Like, holy shit.
What if the plan didn't work? What were you gonna do? I mean, you were gonna die. Or were you gonna take the child with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, it goes without saying that Rip Cheryl
Cheryl.
as a result of this. Like, I mean, because here's the thing. The Ideon gun still gets used to blow up the comet anyway. But what's more important in proving Cheryl's original theory is that Lou gets knocked away, but the Ideon's power forms a protective field around him that he just, like, floats off and gets caught on, like, you know, like, a corner of the outside of the ship, so, you know, he is still technically safe. But obviously that power of protection was only for Lou. Cheryl was not given that, so she dies as she is blasted away, and you see, like, the glass on, like, the visor of her helmet shatter, meaning that, oh yeah, she's now dead from, like, asphyxiation in space or just losing all oxygen and the decompression of it all. The last thing you see of her at that moment of death is what looks like her spirit reuniting with the Buff Clan straggler that they took on board at the end of a contact named Guige, where it looks like they have been, you know, brought together and are happy as they, you know, then fade away. It makes the power of the Ide imply that there may be something of an afterlife at all within its superconscience. It's one of those things where, like, I definitely thought about it, like, when it happened. And then, especially when I saw how the ending goes, yeah, I don't mean this to sound rude to the general populace of Earth. It's more just stating a matter of fact. But most people they're dumb as bricks sometimes, okay? Some of them do not have the media literacy to kind of, like, think a bit more beyond the surface, you know? And I could tell just from looking at this that it's like, okay, I'm going to assume what you're supposed to read from this is that there is not an actual, like, afterlife in the traditional way that we as a species have portrayed or thought of the afterlife in, like, stories and generations past. This might be due to the fact that I have read the Getter Robo series and know what the Getter rays are meant to be, that this feels like a case of becoming one with the infinite energy.
I think you're right. This is not a traditional, like, afterlife. This is definitely the Ideon, or, like, the energy itself. They're becoming one with it instead of, like, what we think of the afterlife in a way.
Because throughout, like, all of this story, throughout these movies, you know, people have started to clue into, like, what the Ide is and, like, had theorized that, oh, this has the potential for infinite energy. There's an entire legend surrounding the Ide from, like, ancient civilizations that said that it was a power that could be granted to someone that has, like, a good and altruistic heart, something that, you know, has been demonstrated to be non-existent in pretty much the entire cast up to this point. That it's like, this kind of infinite energy is fueled by collecting the consciousness of, like, living beings when they pass. So that, like, after all those kind of descriptions and theories about what the Ide were, when I saw Cheryl's spirit reunite with Guige in, like, in a very clearly, like, blissful tranquility between them, as they then proceeded to, like, pass away, like, into the energy, I was like, okay, I see where this is going. I see how this is possibly going to make... I said possibly because I was not sure, is still in the process of watching this, whether the for real actual final moment of the movie was going to have, like, a positive, bittersweet feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, it eventually does.
Right.
But I was still kind of guessing if it would even get to that point.
At this point, it makes you wonder about that.
Especially because there was an additional consequence after blowing up that comet. From it spawned even more comets going across the galaxy. And those comets, this time, more directly, deciding to straight up fuck the Earth. Both Earths and the colony planets. Like... You even, like, get a shot of, like, the people on, like, the Buff Clan's homeworld and, like, their emperor, who is also a piece of shit. At least going off of, like, what I know about
Yeah.
like the other named members of the Buff clan, and that this just seems like an all-around like shitty race of human
Yeah.
beings, that they even view the Comets gang fucking them as like an act of divine wrath.
Yeah, it's no big deal. It's just the complete destruction of 2 Earths. That's it.
Yeah.
The fucking everything is over.
Especially sucks for the Solo ship because of how much their own Earth kept telling them, do not get anywhere near us. You are going to bring destruction upon us. And it's like, bro, they were like, I don't even know how many light years away they were, but they basically did just like seal their own homeworld's fate without them even knowing that that was the case.
It just, they were like, don't do it, bro. And then they did it. It's like, fuck, we told you not to.
It's still overwhelming, to say the least.
It is very overwhelming.
At least Kerala manages to find Lou, you know? I mean, like, the battle's still going on outside. There were still some stragglers of, like, the boarding party inside the Solo ship itself. Still hasn't produced that scene yet, but it's still coming. Just give it some time. You know, most of the action's still being focused on outside. But with Kerala and Lou, you know, being outside the ship, the Buff clan, I think specifically, like a ship that is under the command of her evil sister Harulu, fires on them, putting Lou in danger once again, which, at least this time, kind of shockingly, the Ide powers up, but not for the point of just releasing a mega weapon that kills everyone in range. It actually just protects Lou and Kerala, like, with the same protective barrier, and powers up the ship, you know, just enough so that they can actually, you know, warp out of the current space and get out of there, which is surprisingly merciful.
Yeah, which I guess at least there's that for now.
Unfortunately, Harulu, after this discovery, decides she's going to continue being the most evil
Jesus
woman in the entire
Christ.
story, because she gets so excited at the idea of what she feels is going to end the conflict. It's just some child murder. Girl, you could not be any more wrong about why this is happening.
I wish you all could see the faces I'm making while we're talking about this, because I'm just rubbing my eyelids, just rolling my head back, going, God, and covering my face. It's so fucking much.
I even wrote as much in the show notes, not really in relation to like a specific moment where I was like, so much death and destruction happens that you can't help but like lose track of things at times because of how overwhelming it is.
At least we get the funny image of them giving a child a sniper rifle.
Yeah, yeah, like at least the kids that are older than Lou are able to be like, well, I mean, we said women and children have to protect themselves. Here you go, sport.
Here's a sniper rifle that's bigger than you. Go shoot some guys.
It's something, yeah. But it does give way, you know, like after the Solo ship is able to escape, we're basically getting, I'm going to say, the last calm moment that this story is ever going to give us.
Before that, I do want to mention a detail I actually really like, is the Buff clan is like revealing their secret ultimate Doom weapon.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, they fire it off and they're like, okay, it's going to take 30 minutes before it actually hits. And I'm like, oh, they're actually taking the speed of light in account of this. They're actually thinking about some like actual the science in this in a super robot show.
Yeah, for like this giant portable like Death Star style laser beam that is accompanied by like harsh strobe lighting effects that I feel are way more like at risk of causing a seizure.
Yeah, it's
I know we've already talked about like some anime on this podcast that like various episodes where there is like some like strobe lighting effects that are like typically of like the black and white variety. This one, I actually almost had a panic attack because I was like, I am seeing red and blue alternate very quickly. I am very concerned I cannot show this to anyone else.
Yeah, it's bad. It's some bad strobe lighting.
Yeah. Fucking Showa era Japanese people are just built different. That is the thing I have continued to learn as I get older.
Oh yeah, like they were built on this. Yeah, at least we managed to get a moment of calm, like you were saying.
Yeah, because while we had the audience had already gotten, you know, the information that Kerala was pregnant, basically now it is officially announced to everyone on the ship that, hey, Kerala is with child. It's also Bess's child. you know? But considering how much of a good character at his core Bess has been like trying to represent during like these harsh times, even when you consider that like in the remaining full story of the TV anime, he is still susceptible to breakdowns like from like the mental duress of it all. He's still like honestly like the best person that could have been like chosen for an interspecies marriage and like an offspring of that nature. I mean, like, well, I said marriage. It's not technically a marriage. It's just, it literally is just, they started feeling things for each other, and then they boned.
Yeah, pretty much. That's, if you're wondering if you're missing some kind of, like, romance developing between them, I mean, you are. But also, don't worry about it.
I mean, it does, at least, like, because everyone is now fully on board with, like, with the current theory that, yes, the Ide's power comes from the fact that there are children on board, children that still have, like, a pure heart, but not necessarily, you know, like, the strength or maturity to, like, defend themselves. So the Ide is acting as, like, a guardian, and, like, because of that, it is also extended to, you know, protecting the crew around them. So they're like, oh, we should do our part to make sure that Lou and Corolla's, you know, unborn child can still be safe, and the Ide will surely like continue to guide us, you know, like that's kind of like the like what they think is going on, and that you get the slightest amount of hope that maybe the legend will come true and the Ide's power will be granted to someone that is of like a pure and good heart. Almost. I guess.
By the way, can we just mention that they named the fucking child Messiah?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. They call him Messiah.
Bro, there is subtlety, and then there is, here's a brick, I'm gonna toss it at your face. That's what this is. It's like, okay, I get, fuck you, Tomino.
For Tomino, it's like, here's a brick with a claymore mine strapped on it. Here, catch, fucko.
It's that level of subtlety we're dealing with.
I do like as well. I didn't write it down, but I still clearly remember it because one thing that I guess to kind of go with like the lack of time spent on developing romantic relations, but still acknowledging they exist. One of the other Ideon pilots, Kasha, who is like I guess the heroine, the traditional like robot pilot heroine that you would have in a show like this. I guess started to show that yeah, there is some romantic feelings between her and Cosmo. That it looks like. I think because of just the positivity of knowing that Corolla is going to have a kid, and that and that love is still able to bloom in this horrible situation, that it looks like, oh, Cosmo and Corolla want to like reciprocate with a little kiss. Too bad the rims of their helmets prevent them from doing so.
Good.
It's honestly adorable.
It's kind of cute. It's like one cute moment in a show in a movie filled with horror.
That's the last time you're gonna see those two be happy.
Oh boy.
The final battle has started in earnest, you know, like Buff Clan is like doing what they can to like, you know, lure the solo ship into a position where their super weapon will be able to fire at it. The Ideon now has a slight change in personnel because currently like Kasha has decided to step down from piloting like her part of the Ideon and giving it to like another character, Deck, who's basically the youngest. He is not even a teenager. He's just a kid, which further fuels people's hopes on the ship that are like, oh, if the EDA is looking after children, then Deck having a more important role inside the Ideon means that like there'll be more energy to keep us safe, you know? Because I mean, like he's just a kid. He's a kid with a cute little alien squirrel that also has its own squirrel-sized astronaut suit.
It would be cute if it was like another kind of show we were dealing with.
Yeah, so Kasha is staying on the solo ship with Corolla and a lot of the other kids, basically just kind of as they basically decided to set up like multiple lines of defense within the ship itself, because they know that there's going to be like the Buff Clan is going to come at them with everything, including boarding parties if necessary, to try and kill the crew in person. That they gotta like make as much of a defensive perimeter around Corolla and Lou with like, you know, like mostly like the other women and children, the people that are not the combat personnel, to try and like basically like make sure that everyone at the center of this plan is safe, you know, that they're receiving the Ideon's protection. But more importantly, like, because as you might imagine with them preparing for that, yes, we do get another raid on the solo ship. And Harulu wants to kill that fucking child really bad.
She wants to fucking murder that child. She's got the bloodlust in her.
Oh.
They reveal the reason why she wants to kill that child so bad that it made me just shake my head and go, Tomino.
Oh, just the really petty reason of like, how come she got to be happy and in love when I couldn't?
Yeah, I'm like, because the women.
Like, it's that kind of thing.
It's like, God.
But you at least get to, like, even during this fight, it's actually been happening a few times, like, earlier in the story, but it starts to ramp up more and more as you get near the end. The idea of, like, the Ide's power allowing, like, people on both sides of the conflict to, like, directly communicate to each other, like, psychically. And I know because, like, you've watched Zeta, that, like, I guess it makes sense from what I had heard about that and, like, kind of how much the whole new type power stuff kind of developed as Tomino, like, worked on the series more and more. That is like, okay, I could see how, like trying to, like, have these kind of moments where it's like you're trying to, like, work past the usual barriers that typically cause miscommunication and a divide between people by just directly speaking to the other person's soul.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. They do that a lot in Zeta, and you can kind of see it in here. And there's a lot of... And it just kind of ends up with two people are like yelling at each other and talking past each other. Like they're unable to find a common goal.
Talking past them, you describing it like that really is like the best way to put it. Like I was definitely missing the words for that because you're right. There's a lot of yelling, mostly on, starting from like on Cosmo's end, because he tends to be the one that is in those positions of like having those like psychic communications with like members of the Buff clan. They're trying to speak their point, but they're not framing it in a way where it feels like they're trying to like talk to them. It's just yelling to anyone that is going to listen. Unfortunately, they won't.
Which is a common trope in a lot of his works.
So the two sisters clash. Harulu's boarding party actually manages to make it pretty far to where Karala and Lu are holed up. Like Harulu is like still like continuing to be blind with hatred, while Karala is like kind of showing that like she's going to like keep standing strong as best she can. Until she gets fucking shot in the face with like a fucking... The framing of it is beyond horrific.
Yeah.
Like not in a way that... Because when I think of like horrific death shots in anime, like I definitely think of the more gross ones from like OVAs that came out during the 80s, like the really ultra violent ones. All you really see are just the 3 bullet holes piercing through the, the visor and going through her face, and the visible expression of like instant shock and pain as she falls over. Doesn't even linger on it, but because of just how much of the frame her face takes up at the moment, it's fucking scary. Honestly.
I think what's horrifying about it is how sudden it is. She's just gone now. She's dead. That's it. There's no like big dramatic moment. No like moments where she like makes her last breath or anything. No, she's fucking gone.
Yeah, that's what would happen if you just got shot through the head. Like, all brain activity fucking done.
It's such a horrifying image.
And yet, the crazy silver lining on this, after, Karala gets killed and, like, the survivors of the boarding party get repelled, which, eventually is going to, after all the horrible things she does, Harulu is going to get her comeuppance, but just not yet. Instead, we have to be shown that there's a silver lining to this. Karala may not be dead, but the child in her is still alive somehow. Again, the Ide is refusing to let what it deems to be a pure and good soul like pass away, especially as a consequence of like an adult meeting her end.
It will literally not let the child die.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where it's like this is something that you could absolutely imagine being taken as like, a twist that would lead to something even more terrible in like a horror movie or something, But instead, it's like, it's a weird mix of like, initially you think it's hope, but Cosmo being like the one that is like kind of most intuitive of what is going on, kind of has the final revelation of what the Ide's intention actually is.
Yeah.
Like, the protection that it has been giving to Lu and now Messiah, the fact that that protection could not be given to Kerala herself, to the mother, probably because of the fact that, like, when her dad was about to kill her, she was willing to do the same in return. The Ide has basically decided, you are all lost causes. I am literally pushing both of your sides to mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is. Their destruction is its will, with the only people allowed to survive at this point being Lu and an unborn fetus.
At this point, there is like a lingering, like there's already been this feeling of despair, but it's been enhanced now because it's like, fuck, we're just accelerating our own destruction now. There's no way to stop this. We're too far. We've gone too far.
If we keep fighting, we die. If we run away and lay down our arms, they're going to kill us and then more than likely get killed off anyway. No one wins.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. It's so
yeah.
Also, I want to say, like, there's another thing like that's common in Tomino's shows is like making way for future generations. Like, that's a constant thing. He's even talked about it. And I feel like this is the darkest version of that, where to make way of the future generations, the old generation has to die. I mean, of course, you could take it as like metaphorically, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, because so much of what has spurred this conflict on is the result of like adults that have like more authority and power than like the more pure-hearted kids that are essentially having to live at like their behest. Yeah. It is a rough realization, and is like kind of where the cosmic horror of Ideon itself basically like reaches ahead, because you've gotten the hints of it as it goes along, and people keep going like getting closer and closer to figuring out what the Ide's intention actually is. You know, I mean, like, there's even a fucking dream sequence early in the story where Cosmo basically is getting a communication from the Ide itself about how it is an entire collective of consciousness that like from like past civilizations, that the only way for it to continue is to acquire more consciousness. So what better way to do it than to just put these two like hateful, shitty humanoid races out of their misery by killing each other.
Just get rid of them.
After all, we've seen what happens to their spirits after they leave this mortal coil. We saw Cheryl do the same earlier, and we're gonna see it happen a bit more as the final battle is now underway. Like, again, with the Ideon no longer giving fucks about collateral damage in the universe, in order to get the jump on the Buff Clan like main flagship and like their fleet, they're hiding behind Jupiter. That is no concern for the Ideon, as it takes its gun and blasts a fucking hole through the planet. Sure, that's fine. Nothing matters in this material universe anymore. We already know what it wants from us.
Yeah, this is just signaling, in case it wasn't obvious enough, that the Ideon has stopped caring. It's like, fuck you all, actually.
Yes. If you want to like know what could be the earliest possible moment that, you know, because like I think some people interpret it as like this was always the Ide's intention from the start of the story. But I choose to think that like because of like it being a collection of consciousness that clearly had to have originated from, you know, living sentient beings like the humans, it probably had like a more hopeful outlook at the beginning before a certain moment happened where it decided this was a lost cause. And I'm pretty sure that moment was what you see at the beginning of Be Invoked, where Kerala reveals to her dad that she is pregnant, and the whole meeting is supposed to be like getting those two in a room to try and make peace talks. When that didn't work, and the dad was clearly willing to fucking kill the bearer of his bastard grandchild. Yeah, I can see how the Ideon goes, this was a mistake.
There's no salvaging this anymore. Fuck this, actually.
Yeah, this baby, he's fine. Also, this unborn kid, he's fine as well. I'm going to do something for him, but not for her.
Not for you.
Yeah, the futility sets in pretty hard, because like in the early parts of the battle, we finally get to see Harulu get killed. Thank fuck. But now with her out of the way, that means we actually get more time to spend like on like Doga as a character and like how he is like internalizing this entire conflict.
Yeah, even he's like, he realizes, we're just accelerating our own destruction at this point. And then I think what the other guy with him is like trying to fight back, or he couldn't believe any of this, and Doga just shoots him.
Yeah, like his assistant was more concerned with the fact that it's like he still could not believe that like the Buff Clan's Earth, as it were, had been destroyed, that he wants to go and like verify it itself, mostly as a convenient excuse to like not be anywhere near the center of this large battle. But it's the sort of thing where it's like you can tell how much the futility of the story is set in when, like, yeah, not only does Doga realize that they have been pawns of the Ideon for quite some time now, that rather than trying to fight against it, like, he's just going to do the same shit that everyone on the solo ship has basically resigned themselves to. They're just going to keep going through with the fight. Like, let's just accelerate the end of all life in the universe because nothing fucking matters.
We are just digging we've gone too far. Well, there's no turning back anymore. We could just keep going now.
We still got energy in our big fuck-off laser cannon that we're going to try another shot on the Ideon itself to destroy it for good. But not before more raiding parties try to kill off. Well, in this case, I'd say they are, by the end of it, mostly successful in killing off the crew, because it finally happens. 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 24 seconds on my count. The child death that I had become very familiar with through GIFs on the internet. Boom, headshot.
It happened. We finally get it. I knew this was coming, and I still can't believe they got away with it. Holy shit, how did they let this go through?
I like to think that there was probably people just willing to let it slide on the fact that this was being aired in a movie theater and not on TV.
And I bet at that point, it's like they were so desensitized by everything else. They're like, sure, fuck it, why not? Add another death to the pile. Kill the kids.
Yeah, kill the kids. Kill, like, the bridge crew. Mortally wound Bess. Like, fucking seeing like the blood just like fill up like the inside of his helmet is like real shitty. But he is still holding on best he can. The pilots of the Ideon are doing their best to like kind of hold on. That it's like they're putting their all into like into like a single point attack, where they're just going to use like their warp technology to just send the ship and the Ideon directly in front of the flagship. Is the sort of thing where, like, again, because of them just having no choice but to go along with what the Ideon is guiding them into doing, they initially think what it's guiding them to is, like, the big laser cannon that is, like, trying to take them out. You know, the one that is being masked by all the seizure lights. But no, like, you see the hints of it, of, like, a small glow emanating from Doga's chest as it then, like, kind of zooms back out into the vastness of space, that it's like, oh no.
Oh no.
No, the Ide is telling everyone to kill this man.
Yeah, just kill this man. Please, he doesn't deserve to live anymore.
Yeah, and not even the solo ship crew being told this subconsciously. I'm pretty sure even the, like, as another example of the Ide just manipulating everyone without them knowing, even the bridge crew on Doga's flagship is like, fuck you, I do not want to have to die for your bullshit. So it's in a very kind of absurd piling of causes of death. You have Doga getting shot by his crew via insubordination, which is immediately followed by the Ideon just tearing open the bridge, everyone inside getting decompressed and pulled into the vacuum of space, and then oh look, that cannon that was charging up this entire time finally fired off. It's destroyed the Buff Clan flagship, it's destroyed the solo ship, and it's destroyed the Ideon, which means we have now invoked the Ide truly by just releasing that energy. Everything that people theorized in the show would have happened if you just broke open a container of infinite energy. The universe fucking dies.
Everything is dead now.
Yeah, it's a massive explosion. And this is why, like, again, kind of going back to when we mentioned Ideon's inclusion in Super Robot Wars, yes, this is the important thing. If you have Ideon in battle, you better make sure it does not die because everyone goes down with it.
It will literally take everyone with it. Yeah, it's okay because it's never going to die anyways.
Yeah, because it's so fucking strong against everything else anyway. But this is now where it gets to kind of what we mentioned earlier on, where the TV ending and the movie ending, if you were to just look at like the common details, you would think it was just the exact same thing, but on a larger scale. But really, it's not. Like, yes, every living being is now dead as a result of the Ide's energy just being released completely. But it's not being done so in a way where it just feels like, oh, everything is over. There was no point to it.
Yeah.
No. Like, remember what we talked about with when characters in this movie have died, like very key, important characters, and you see their spirit afterward, typically with like a reuniting with someone that they had lost before. I mean, even beforehand, like, kind of different from that, but like after Doga had killed his assistant, he like that dude's spirit reappeared and was like, Doga had a conversation with him before realizing, wait, hold on, I thought you were dead. Before realizing, oh wait, this was just another hallucination. Kind of reminds me again of how much like later chapters of Getter Robo had to have taken from this, because I'm distinctly reminded of how the Getter rays can like just cause the manifestation of like the spirits of people that had passed away, and like basically converse with the living or give them warnings of what is to come. Yeah. Like it just feels more and more the idea that we kind of understand, in that with the death of the universe, the souls of those beings are not just gone forever. Yeah. They've actually now moved on to being with it, just another part of the Ide's like greater collective consciousness, floating freely, reuniting with like both friend and foe, like past grudges finally gone, and celebrating the birth of Messiah.
Yeah, we get to see all their spirits and everybody's happy now. They're all dead, but they're floating, they're reunited with their loved ones, they're happier than ever. They don't have to worry about anything. And I think you put it well, as how did you feel while you're watching this finale yourself, or these final moments?
I felt like by the time, so I think in order to describe this, we have to describe like the other movie that is like kind of meant as a parallel to this from like almost 2 decades after the fact. We're referring to End of Evangelion, if it wasn't obvious for you people at home. I mean, we mentioned Eva earlier as far as them following the same roadmap that Ideon did to finish its story, but it was obviously because of the fact that End of Evangelion is very much the Be Invoked of the 90s. Well, most of the way there, I'd say.
I'd say like End of Eva is the pessimistic version of it. That's right.
Absolutely.
This is the positive version of it.
Yeah, because when I watched End of Eva for the first time, as a young lad, as a teenager that was basically watching it when I was at the same age that Shinji was, which meant it'd feel all the weirder, I remember it taking an entire night of sleeping it off in order to compartmentalize and like kind of understand what the fuck I had watched. And like just process the emotions that I felt from it. For Be Invoked, from the moment that the universe died, and the moment that I reached the final second of the video file, I had basically had internalized everything that I was feeling completely in a much faster time span than the amount of time I had to spend internalizing End of Eva. I mean, granted, I think part of that is because I already had the End of Ava experience before this. So it was like, I was no longer surprised by the idea of, oh, there are just works of art out there that are just designed to make you feel existential and confused about yourself.
Yeah, and I think, God, imagine being someone in the 80s watching this for the first time, too. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But, I think one thing that really strikes me about this movie and Ideon as a whole is, for all the death and destruction, we still kind of end in a positive message, because the spirits of everybody are celebrating like the birth of a new being, of a better tomorrow. Like, in a way, there's still, it's a bitter hope, because, people still died, the universe is dead, but there's a new something new is being born out of it.
Yeah, like and it's very important because of the celebration of like the birth of that new generation. That of course the new generation, the ones that are represented as babies, are the ones leading all the souls to like a new universe. It's not the adults, it's not a man, it's not a woman.
It's
it's
literally
children.
the children, which it's a message I can fuck with, where it's the message of the children are the future. Look out for the children. They will be the ones who will guide the future.
Yeah.
Even if we as the adults have like fucked up and made all these mistakes, we can still salvage it.
Yeah. Or if you're like me, where I personally have never been that too comfortable around younger children. I mean, I often ascribe to like the quote from Daria of, I don't like kids. I didn't even like kids when I was a kid.
I mean, same, but
But I also am not going to get in the way of kids being able to just grow up and live however they want. Just don't drag me into it, please.
I mean, speaking as someone who also feels the same, yes, I'm like, I appreciate the children's growing up. I just don't want one myself.
Yeah, like it is wild. Again, it seems almost impossible that something like something as negative and like just traumatic as this could like end with like some manner of positivity. But part of what made me think that it's the case that is because another, like, watching Ideon also made me think of another thing from the 90s that I think has been like misconstrued as being, I guess you could say, Eva influenced. Because of the fact that it is another one of those things that Eva did that clearly came from something before it. And that is the story of Radiant Silvergun.
Oh, really?
The Ide and the Stone-like are not too dissimilar, I would say, as far as being like godlike beings that feel that there needs to be like a fucking reset of the current generation.
Right, yeah.
The difference, though, is that in the case of Radiant Silvergun, it's going more with the idea that this is a cycle that has repeated end on end and is likely going to continue end on end until a generation comes around that is finally able to move past like these needless conflicts and like horrific acts that are causing such divides between humanity.
Yeah.
And also in Radiant Silvergun's case, it's technically meant to be, by the director's admission, kind of a metaphor for like just the, I guess, what he felt about how even in the 90s, how big companies were like just kind of treating video games as like a very disposable medium.
And this was done like in a shmup as well, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah. But the reason I bring that up specifically is because of the cyclical aspect, and that the idea that it's a cycle that's still going to repeat is kind of where you get some of that lingering cynicism that, before watching and like kind of theorizing where Be Invoked was going to go before I watched it, I was thinking I would not be surprised if it tries to end on like a somewhat, trying to balance hope and cynicism with trying to be like, oh, this cycle's just going to repeat. But even after seeing how Be Invoked ends, I don't think I can really say that it's hinting at this cycle is going to repeat. And it's because of one key detail.
What's that?
The Ideon is destroyed.
Yeah, the Ideon's gone. It's just gone. That just means there is no cycle to repeat.
That energy is no longer in a container that requires like feeding on newer and newer consciousness, like new civilizations that discover it. It doesn't need to like do this constantly anymore because that energy has just now become part of the universe itself. So when the next generation basically evolves and grows to the same place that, the humans were in the year 2300, like, I think it's more clear than ever that version of humanity will be in a position to do greater and more good things than the humans in the Buff Clan ever did during this story.
Yeah, and this is like ultimately why I still recommend people to watch Ideon, because this is a movie with horrible things happening to people. But in the end of the day, there's all still this lingering sense of hope at the end of it. It's like I mentioned before, this is not a nihilistic work.
It is dark and bleak, but I think it is also like the rawest and like, and I think for me personally, like the realest encompassing of like an entire person's like mental being, or at least like that person's mental being as it was like when he was significantly younger than he is now. Because I mean, like, even though like even when you see interviews with Tomino today, you know, like the way that like his answers and stuff are translated still come off with like that same kind of like very vocal, outspoken tone. But you could tell that he is a changed man that has kind of grown past stuff that I can identify with mentally. Because here's the thing about people that outwardly project a lot of anger or negative feelings about other people or the state of the world. I can explain this because I've also felt this plenty of times myself. And that is, those type of people are actually almost paradoxically sounding the most hopeful motherfuckers ever.
Yeah.
Because being that mad about things isn't something that any of us really take pleasure in continuing to kind of like hold on to that mood. It's just the sort of thing that ends up happening because it comes from a place of like caring a lot. Maybe too much, depending on the context, but caring a lot about wanting to see other people do better.
Yeah, it's like, it's just that feeling of you just care so much that it gives so much emotion in you.
And that emotion can obviously manifest in something that is actually positive. It can feel refreshing, or it can result in like tons of frustration and misanthropy because you feel like you're in a position of, this stuff needs to change, but I am just one person. I don't even have the power I wish I could have to change this. Yeah. So like having 4 Tomino directed mecha anime under my belt, most of them being obviously during the time period when he had basically established like the Kill 'Em All Tomino nickname, like kind of surrounding him and his reputation. I feel like, I guess, the most empathy for that past version of him, knowing full well that obviously he has learned to really like temper a lot of that and be able to enjoy life more so than times where I guess he would not enjoy life as much. I think it's like the best way to kind of close out a summary of Ideon, because of not just only getting to the core of like what the ending message of the movie is, but also how it ties into like, I guess, an aspect of the human condition as seen through through like a Japanese anime director whose cantankerousness borders on Harlan Ellison.
Oh yeah, at least it really gives me hope that like even after everything he's gone through, he's become, I don't want to say a happier man, but a man who's more content with his life.
I think so. I mean, like, I made the Harlan Ellison example. I think even before, in his twilight years before he died, he had considerably mellowed out compared to like his earlier days where he was just so combative with every other like creative person in like multiple industries.
Oh yeah, he even like starred like in a Scooby-Doo show for an episode. That's how much he mellowed out.
Yeah,
I think that's a great way to put it, where like even people like that are not hopeless. They are not nihilists. They have hope in their hearts. It's just that hope is so overwhelming sometimes, or those emotions are overwhelming.
Yeah, it's almost like a disproportionate matter of like that hope spot is technically smaller than like all the smoldering rage and like frustration, but it's like still condensing like that same amount of hope that like it ends up shining brighter than it actually is. And I think even also shows that, you know, if you really want to know like what the real like pessimists are out there, like the real nihilists are probably the ones that were like clinging hard to like a toxic positive outlook without really being prepared for the fact that things can and will go wrong in life, and they're always going to go wrong before they get better again. Tomino, at least I could tell, did not fall into that same trap, and instead has been someone that is like true to his personal feelings and emotions, whatever the time frame may be. Sometimes it gives us, you know, something like this, or sometimes it'll give us stuff that is just designed to like make you like feel happy and not worry about anything, like, you know, what he went to do after this, which was a bungle.
Or like it kind of ends up being ends up making something beautiful, like turning Gundam.
Yeah, which that's still on the list. That's still moving up pretty up there as far as stuff to get through next year.
That's why, you know, even with like as heavy and as this entire conversation got, I'm glad we still had it. This is like a bit of great conversation.
We learned about a lot
We
of things.
sure did. Like,
And we're going to learn about a lot more things for our final episode. You know? Hard to think we're this close to the end, but a week from now, it'll all be over.
one last episode, y'all.
Yeah, look forward to that because, still not saying what the title is, but with what we have talked about for this particular episode, talking about Ideon, I hope you're prepared for a lot more insightful and introspective discussion about certain topics that deserve it.
I mean, what could it be? You'll just have to find out.
All right, take care, everyone.
Bye, nerds.